Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hey, Gertrude, thank you so much for having me. I love your story. I love your channel. I love what you do for women, and I'm happy to participate. One of the things that I love to do is just share information to help people, and especially women, understand their feelings, how their mind works, and help empower them. And my name is Diane Konkin. I'm the founder and CEO of my practice called Advanced Mind Health. And that is a no repeat client therapy practice where I help people eliminate self-sabotage thought patterns and substance habits or addictive behaviors in only 1 to 3 sessions with a 99% success rate. And I am based in Niagara Falls, Canada. And my story is, I think the background of this is why I got into this, is I lived with my late husband who struggled with depression and addiction for over 15 years. And he was highly educated. He was a professional in education, and he always fought with his mind. And I witnessed him struggle with this for so long. And the depression led to alcoholism because he was self-medicating. He said, it's the only thing that helps me feel better. And, he said, he was very articulate when he talked to me about what he was feeling and what he was going through. And he said, alcohol is my problem and my solution. And looking back today at the things he was telling me about how he had a mother with depression and an alcoholic father and was meant to feel a lot of shame as a child. Now that I know what I do today, I thought if I only knew then what I know now, I could have helped him. And he was in and out of rehab 3 times. I stood by him because he didn't want to drink. He always wanted to stop. It was just something that he could not control. So he was in and out of rehab. And at one point, we were seeing some counselors at an addiction treatment center. And any treatment center he went to, I was always fascinated by what I learned about addiction, what I learned about mental wellness and illness and from the counselors. And I thought someday I want to do this. Like, I just thought that was the coolest job in the world because you are making people with emotional pain feel better. I said to my friends, if my husband had a broken leg or if he was in a car accident, I could visit him in the hospital and make him feel better. I could cheer him up. I could bring him things. But as a family member, nothing that you do can help this person in your life feel better. And if you've experienced that kind of darkness, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So after he passed, it was years after he passed, he passed almost 10 years ago now, is when I started looking for therapy myself, because my grieving process didn't begin until about 2 or 3 years after he passed. At the beginning, I felt this immense sense of freedom because I thought, now I'm not a caregiver and he's in a better place. And he's over his pain now. And now I can live my life, which I did. And then the darkness hit on me, going, okay, now what's next for the next chapter? So I started researching hypnotherapy, and I found the method that I certified in 3 years ago, and it's called Rapid Transformational Therapy. And I was fascinated by how it works. It's a brand new form of psychotherapy, which includes medical hypnosis. And it is really gaining global recognition as one of the best treatments out there. Doctors are learning it, psychotherapists are learning it to help their clients get better faster. And it was developed by a woman named Marissa Peer out of the UK. And she developed it because she was a psychotherapist for over 30 years. And she said, there's got to be a better way to help her clients. You know, she said, if you go to a doctor with heart pain, he's not going to say, well, come back next week and talk about it. She wanted to really develop a fast method to help people break through their emotional pain. And this is why I do what I do today. So once I saw this method, the first thing I thought of is, this is too good to be true. And I'm a very concrete person. I mean, I am spiritual, but I also I'm skeptical about things that seem too good to be true. So I did a lot of research, and after 3 months, I decided to invest in the program. And almost a year later, I certified. And I had already done all my practice sessions, and I did more practice sessions. And then by the following 2 or 3 months, I was ready to accept paying clients. And like I said, I've had a 99% success rate. I've worked with over 100 people, probably close to 200 now. I'm losing count. And I really love to explain to people how their minds work, how it's all based in our thoughts, how our thoughts create our feelings, which create our actions, which create our life. And we have power over that because our subconscious mind is 97% of what drives our behaviors and our actions and our decisions. So this is the reason why willpower doesn't work, because we're trying to change our habits of action without changing our habits of thought. And you're trying to change your habits with only 3% of your decision-making power. So this is why this method is wonderful. This is how I get to help people struggling with anxiety and depression and addiction, like my husband, in usually just 1 to 2 sessions. And like I said, it's just, they're very happy with what they discover, because when you are in a relaxed state, your mind really opens up. It's like listening to a guided meditation session with me. I speak to you, I put you in a very relaxed state, and then I just start asking questions. And I say things like, okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and the answer is going to come to you immediately. And the first thing that comes to mind, share with me what it is. And after 2 hours of going through the tools that I was taught by Marissa, I was trained by her personally, and going through the tools and doing the reframe, understanding the root cause, this is exactly how the clients begin to unravel and transform what was in there. I call it a mental sliver, right? And as soon as you go in there and find out what is causing your issues, Marissa says, first be a detective and then be a dentist. So first I help you discover the root cause of the issues. Where is this all coming from? So unlike traditional talk therapy, where you start talking about your feelings and your relationships, and it could take weeks to unravel all of that. I start at the beginning. I start, okay, why did this happen? This addiction that's inside of you, how and why and where and when did it develop? This anxiety inside of you, why did your mind buy into a belief that it needed to give you this anxiety in your body? And so when we have that, like I said, we can start to unframe it and unravel it. And that's when we get to the transformation part. And clients love it because after a session, they'll say, I would have never remembered that memory that I came up with or that my mind showed me when I asked it this question. I would have never connected this belief that I've formed before with what I'm struggling now, or with this block that I'm being presented now by my mind. So, what this method is really good at doing is creating an alignment between your conscious wants and your subconscious, what I call your operating system. Because, like I said, that's 97% of what makes us, our decisions, our behaviors, our actions, our thoughts, our feelings. Everything is coming from that part of our mind that's hidden, which you can access very easily, as proven by the newest research in neuroscience. So that's what I love to do. And this is how I love to help people. And this is how I love to educate people now.
Diane, you've been through a lot yourself, having experienced this with your husband, being his caregiver.
Mm.
If there was somebody who's listening to this interview right now and is going through a similar challenge, they have a husband, they have a child, they have somebody in the family who is struggling with addiction. Based on what you learned from your experience, if you were to go back, what advice would you have wanted somebody to have said to you at that time when you were going through the challenge?
Well, it's funny, because when I remember one day I was working a very high profile job at the time, with a film festival, and I was managing a lot of plates and a staff of about 5 or 6 people. And I came home for lunch, and I remember Rick was in a really bad state. He was in a really dark, he's in the middle of one of his dark periods. And he had to call in sick for work. He couldn't function. He couldn't stop crying. I left him in bed, and he said, he was so sweet. I'm going to get emotional. He kept saying, I don't want you to worry about me. That was the last thing he wanted. He kept saying, you go to work, you do what you have to do, and I'll be fine. I'll be fine. So I'd come home, find him in the same spot, crying, and I would just hold him through my whole lunch hour. And I remember one day saying to him, this is not something that is your fault. This is something that is happening to you. This is not something that you did. So I love analogies, and I would say to him, like, if you had a cold, your nose would be running. I said, this depression is happening to you, and this is a symptom of what is going on. So I still relay that same information to people. Number one rule, especially with my clients with addiction, anxiety, any self-sabotaging thoughts, this is not your fault. It's not anything you did. But what happens is we get these negative thoughts that loop and loop in our heads. And the more that loops, the more your brain grooms those neural pathways. So those thoughts become stronger and longer, right? But the thing is that you don't have to buy back into them. And there's a reason that it's doing this. Everyone has a different root cause. But I mean, even with my addiction clients, I had one guy I was working with, he was in his 50s. He had been binge drinking for, probably 30 years, since he was in his early 20s. And I asked him, What is it? You're going to tell me right now as I count back from 5. You're going to go back to the original root cause, the reason why you developed an addiction inside of you. And then I said, okay, this scene or memory that your mind is showing you right now, how old are you? And in every one of the scenes that came up, he was under the age of 9. So he wasn't drinking at 9. He was watching his alcoholic father. He was being pulled out of bed in the middle of the night, and he was to go to his alcoholic grandfather's house. So his alcoholic father could try to break up a fight. Like, this is all of the stuff he was watching. And what I say to my clients is, we live what we learn, but we don't have to, because as with anything, awareness is key. And when you understand what's going on, you understand where your cycle comes from, and you understand that it's nothing that you caused, then you can start to transform yourself into the person you were before all the stuff happened to you. We think that we are our past, but that's not true. Right now, our mind is clinging to not our experiences, but the meanings that we attached to those experiences. And when you look back to your experiences and you say, okay, how old was I when that experience happened to me? All right, do I need to hold on to that any longer? Absolutely not. Who am I today? I'm somebody that I love myself. I think I'm pretty good. And the depression is, I'm no good. Nobody's going to like me. Nobody's going to accept me. I feel different. I feel, all of the bad things, not skinny enough, not pretty enough. But those are all the wrappings, right? You need to start to remember who you are before all of that stuff happened, because no baby was born with a mental illness or with an addiction. This is stuff that develops in us, and it doesn't become a part of who we are. I mean, it is a part, but it is not who we are. It's just a part that's sitting there. I call it like a tumor. That's something that's sitting inside of you that you can destroy. And there's an easy way to do it.
Wow. What's amazing about the technique or the process that you use is it's fast. A lot of people spend years and years and years in therapy. So, what is it exactly that you do? Are you able to zap right into that tumor, that incident, the starting point where it all
Yeah.
started?
Absolutely, Gertrude. Like I said, the difference between rapid transformational therapy and traditional talk therapy is you start with the root cause. I don't make you talk for hours and weeks and months about all of your symptoms and how bad you feel and what people did to you and how you reacted. Because if you didn't have your issue that you had, you would be able to deal with those circumstances much easier. So that's what I do. I start with the root cause. And when we look at that and start unraveling it and pulling it apart and detaching from it and reframing it and transforming it, that's where the real healing starts to happen. At the end of a 2-hour session, every one of my clients just goes, wow, like that was amazing. I hear a lot. I feel lighter. I feel freer. I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off of my shoulders. So the session is what really does the work. And then at the end of the session, I leave them with a 15-minute audio recording that is personalized to them. It sums up what we've talked about in the session, what they want out of life, how there's no need to believe what they used to believe, how they are reframing, how they are transforming themselves, how they are communicating to their mind what they want now. And that is what really lays in those new neural pathways. So those become their new thought processes that run their mind rather than the old ones. I mean, we upgrade the software at our computer all the time. we don't think anything of it. But our subconscious minds are really the software of how we operate, because our subconscious minds are formed from all of our past experiences and history. But there's a way to just upgrade that. And you can communicate with your mind what you want, because the number one job of the mind is to help you survive. But the number one rule of the mind is it will always do exactly what it thinks you want it to do. And especially, it's so quick, this method, because I work with my clients at that subconscious level. Stanford University did a study in 2016, the most comprehensive of its kind on hypnosis. And they did brain scans of people who were just in an extremely relaxed state, which is all that is. We fall into it on a daily basis. Sometimes we call it zoning out, or if we get home and we don't remember the last 10 minutes of the drive and we were just focused on our thoughts, that's all it is. And Stanford University did a study on people who were in this relaxed state. And what happens is their minds open up, their brains become extremely receptive and suggestible, because our mind is paying attention all the time. It's why when a newborn baby cries just a little bit, ever so faintly, a mother can get up, because our subconscious minds are always listening, even in our sleep. And when the brain is in that state of being just lit up and very receptive, that's when the most ideal time is to communicate with it and give it new suggestions and question those old beliefs. Because I say to my clients, you used to believe in Santa Claus, right? And as soon as you question that belief, you start to unravel it and you don't believe in it anymore. And that's exactly what I do with my clients, with the beliefs that they are hanging on to, which is causing their anxiety and their depression and their addictions and their self-sabotage behaviors.
Yeah, it is fascinating to think of the mind as an operating system. It's there just running our lives, little stories we've told ourselves in the past. And like you're saying, you just have to upgrade and plant new thoughts, new ways of thinking. What I
Absolutely.
also like is that, like you said, it's doing this in your sleep. You're not even awake to be aware of what's happening, and you can plant new suggestions in your mind while you're sleeping, and your mind will focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that awareness, the awareness of what's running you, what are the programs that are running your life. Absolutely fascinating. Now, does this process help with people who have, for example, depression because of grief? They've lost a loved one and they can't snap out of the sadness, the sad state they're in. I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Grief, definitely. I mean, everybody, they say, of course, and I went through it myself with my husband. We were together for 27 years. And it, like I said, it didn't hit me till 2 or 3 years later, and it lasted a good 2 or 3 years. It just comes in waves, and everybody goes through it. There are stages, but everyone goes through them not in the same order and not in the same timeline. But my ear prick up moment, I call it, is when you said, Gertrude, that she got stuck there. So, what this method does is not help you not grieve, because you don't want to do that. Any loss, our mind is going to react negatively to. However, it can help you get through it a little quicker. It can help you feel lighter. It can help you feel a bit freer. It can help you to take some of that weight off. And for women especially, who are used to being with someone, having that partner that supports you, and all of a sudden you are in the world alone, you don't have to freeze up. You can step into the power that you have. So I mean, you're never going to completely get over the loss of someone like a child or like a very close spouse. But definitely this method can help ease some of that heaviness. Absolutely.
Wow. So if I can now take you into the future, let's have a little thought experiment. If time was an illusion and I could take you to the 100-year-old you,
Mm.
and you're sitting in your rocking chair surrounded by your family, your dogs, your cats, whoever's going to be there with you, and you can have a conversation with the future you. This is now the current you going into the future, talking to the future you. Based on what life has taught you and how you're living your life right now, what would you say to this wise woman who's led you to that point?
I'm just going to tell her I'm so proud of her, because that's one thing, if anything, the most important thing that RTT taught me. Because when I started learning it, I mean, don't forget, I was in a bad place with my grief. And just learning this method helped me through my grief because it gave me a purpose. It gave me a passion. It gave me something to sink my teeth into. I was fascinated by the material. But when I started doing the work and learning about the mind and learning about trauma, I was floored because it opened up my past trauma, which I didn't even think I had. And even the other day, I said something to my girlfriend, and she said, "You know, that's PTSD, right?" So I'm still learning. I mean, I've come a long way from where I was, but we all keep improving and getting stronger. And so I know I'm on that path. And I think, I mean, I'm 58 years old. I just turned 58 in December. And I know that when I'm 100, I will still be alive and I will be living in a very warm place. And if it's not in a rocking chair, it's in a comfortable chair overlooking the ocean and, just being with some really great people. And I'm just going to tell myself I'm so proud for coming as far as you did and being brave to do what you did. Because it's all about learning. Because as women, we have to do that. I mean, we were raised to kind of keep our emotions in, to not be hysterical, to not be brave, to not be courageous. And it's only now in this generation where we're teaching our young girls, no, it's okay to speak up for yourself. It's okay to be strong. It doesn't make you a troublemaker. It makes you an amazing woman. So that's what I'm most proud of, is being on that path.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love asking that question, Diane, because a lot of women don't realize that the wise woman is already in them. She's already waiting for you in the future. And you can tap into the energy of her at any time, ask her for guidance. Like you said, our minds are so powerful,
Mm.
but it's how we're using them, how we're tapping into this energy. So thank you so much. This has been amazing. Your parting thoughts for us today.
Yeah, I would just, as you were saying about the elder, I sometimes do this as well, where I say, I mean, when you say, what would your older self have said to your current self, right? And then when my clients kind of go, I have no idea. Who knows what would have said? And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. Relay it like if today you could have told yourself 20, 30, 40 years ago, or when you were quite young, what would your today's self have told your younger self? And they're like, oh, well, I've got a lot of ideas for that. And I'll say, okay, so now imagine what your older self would tell your current self today. And there's always wisdom there right from within, like you said. So
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for this interview.
my
And
pleasure.
thank you to everybody who's tuned in from around the world. The Her Story Circle is attracting some phenomenal stories and amazing women who are helping in all facets of life, from health and wellness, family and relationships, creativity, social justice, spirituality. So if you need any help, Diane's website is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Please connect with her, find out how you can get help. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Diane, thanks again for the interview.
My pleasure. Keep on doing what you're doing, Gertrude. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep